All right, good evening, everyone. We're actually going to kick this whole thing off. Thanks for your patience. We're actually trying something a little bit new tonight and broadcasting via YouTube Live. So thanks for your patience on a couple fronts. One, this is the first time we've had to set this up for YouTube Live, so we'll go into some details on that here in a little bit. But we also had a group ahead of us that ran right up against the 6 o'clock hour. So again, thanks for your patience and coming out on a Monday night for our January meeting. My name is Dan, and to SRK, I'm the club president. I'd like to welcome you to the Parker Radio Association January monthly meeting. I'd like to introduce any new members we may have had here in the last, say, 2 months. Any new members in the last 2 months?
Returning member.
Returning. Your name? Thanks for being here. Welcome. Any guests? Newcomers? Oh, we have a guest. All right, we got one guest.
Possible new person?
All right. Well, your name?
My name is Chance Whaley.
Chance, welcome. You have a call sign yet?
I do. It's Whiskey General Golf Foxtrot Yankee.
Excellent. Glad you're here. Welcome. And?
I'm Jake, KG5PDF.
Hey, Jake, welcome. Glad you're here. Thanks for finding us. So that's one of the things with the PRA. We're a very welcoming group, so we're glad you're here. It's always great to put a name with a face and a call sign, and also it helps when you're on the air on any one of our repeaters. So make sure you're exercising those amateur radio privileges and the license that you work so hard for. I'd like to do some leadership introductions. We'll start with Paul, AC5S, our Vice President. Good evening, Paul. Man, a few words. Wow.
Yeah, I didn't really have anything to say, but it's, well, I guess I will. So I guess I would expect.
You got 30 seconds.
Just welcome everyone tonight. It's a great turnout for our first meeting in 2022, and we are doing a live YouTube feed now for all of our meetings in the future. The new board met a few weeks ago, and that was one of the things that we said we're definitely going to do. So I want to thank Jeff and Dirk for getting that set up. And anyway, again, welcome to the Parker Radio Association. We're glad you're here tonight.
Absolutely. Thanks, Paul. Robert?
I'm Robert, 80CA, the treasurer. Happy New Year's, everybody. Welcome. Glad you're here.
We'll have a great treasurer's report coming up as well. Right directly in front of Robert, Randy, K0TNG.
Yeah, that's me, Randy, K0TNG, director, one of the directors at large. And I'll have a little bit of something to say here in a little while. So welcome, everybody.
Very good. Where's Scott? There he is. Scott, you're hiding.
Scott, AK6Q, also a director at large for the new board. So,
Absolutely.
got some stuff coming up too.
And also the man behind the scenes, Jeff, AB0L.
Howdy, everybody. And hopefully this will go a little bit smoother in the future.
This is great. No, I love this. This is good. It's going to keep...
I'm seeing you moving on the screen, so
That's a good thing. Well, it's going to keep us pithy throughout this whole meeting and to the point, because we have a great presentation lined up. Brad, AB4BA, on Paracet radio. So if you know nothing about that, you've come to the right place. There's some really cool things that are going to go on tonight. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be a great presentation. Brad, thanks for sharing your time, talent, and treasures with us. Okay, well, we talked about the leadership, so we'll get into the treasurer's report and committee budgeting process. So, Robert, the floor is yours, sir.
There we go. Sorry to bring you printed copies tonight. As of the 3rd, our checking account balance is $64.3. That was after getting our nice audio-visual stuff here tonight, so that worked out great. King Soopers program. If you shop at King Soopers, please sign up for this. As you can see, we got a pretty good total from King Soopers during the year this year. From this, it doesn't cost you anything extra. If you've got a King Soopers shopper's card, all you need to do is get online and register it on the website and pick the Parker Radio Association as your charity of choice. Same thing with Amazon. If you shop on Amazon, who doesn't? Make sure you're doing the smile.amazon.com, and you can pick the PRA there as well as a as the charity of your choice. And every time you buy something, it doesn't cost you more, they kick a little into the bucket for us. Right now, according to Jeff's new numbers we got here, 240 active members, 20 guests, we got 86 expired. Big thanks to Jeff for maintaining that information.
Not much change since year's end as far as the budgeting is concerned.
Not
considering
a lot changed there.
we're
so-
10 calendar days into the year.
Yeah. Hey, I'm a banker, I think month ends.
Yeah, we're a very transparent organization, so if there's any questions on our expenditures or things that you see, please feel free to reach out to Robert or myself. We'll be happy to answer any of those questions.
Yeah, I'm going to be working on finding a way to get this a little bit better to a printed format. Right now, it gets crowded on the page, so once I get that figured out, I'll bring it to the meeting. So everybody can at least have a hand copy that they can read.
Very good. Anything you'd like to go over, Robert, regarding the budgeting process for this coming year in the committees?
For the committees, please, let's get budgets in, I think, February 1st we're talking about that time. Please get the budgets in so we can get those in and approved. Our next board meeting is the 27th this month, right? Right?
Yeah.
So if we can get it in before then, even better. So from the committees, get your wish list put together. And so we can get that process started. Because I'll start including the budget as we go forward from there.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll be going over those new committee chairs as well. We've had several people that have stepped up here in the last month, so we'll be happy to announce those here. So again, thank you for those that have stepped up. You will be recognized here shortly. Anything you'd like to add, Robert?
I think that's about it.
Any questions for Robert from the floor? Okay. Hearing none, we'll continue to move on the board announcements. Obviously, YouTube Live. That's something that the first board meeting we had with the new board came up with the highly strong suggestion that we go back to YouTube Live. We had done that when the COVID lockdowns were underway. And what we had found is during the COVID lockdowns, our membership grew significantly. And we're trying to figure out what did we do differently in order for membership to grow, and it dawned on us very easily. It was our online YouTube Live presence. So we're back to that. We've invested some money into some of that streaming equipment that you see here. Again, the prices were actually far below what I expected them to be. And again, you probably hear me talk about time, talent, and treasures in my monthly column here over the last few months. And boy, we've had some great resources here within the club. Jeff, obviously, brainchilding the idea and doing some research behind the scenes. And we had Dirk into PDQ, who not only does that for a hobby, but also is instrumental in doing that on a weekend at his church. So Dirk, thank you. Jeff, thank you. This certainly goes a long way, and hopefully our online presence will continue to grow, not only with these monthly meetings, but we'll carry them into Elmer Night as well. So good stuff happening there. Also, the board was able to appoint its chair. As you may know, last year we changed some bylaws to update and include that role as a board chair. And on behalf of the board, I'd like to announce that Brad, AB4BA, is our board chair. So Brad, congratulations and thank you. I'd like to also go over some of the committee chair appointments within our Elmer committee. Brad, W0BDT. Brad, thank you. Within our repeater committee, yes, sir.
Can I pause you for a moment?
I'm on pause.
We've had a recent volunteer for our co-chair.
All right.
committee.
Jay, thank you.
You're welcome. KF6UBN.
Excellent. Thank you. Excellent.
Late breaking news.
Excellent. Hey, breaking news. Do you have a screen splash for breaking news? No? Thought I'd ask. John, N4SJW, will be our repeater committee chair. So John, thank you. Field day committee, is that confirmed, Dana, and N0G? Is that correct? It is confirmed. Thank you. So Dana, if you're watching online tonight, thank you. We really appreciate it. Website committee, Jeff, I think you have some announcements on that
What announcements do I have?
as far as the chair.
Got some fresh blood coming, so
All
that's
right.
good. Yeah, we're having a little meetup the 18th. Kind of try not to scare them off.
So anybody have a chair or co-chair type deal?
We'll see what they
Yeah.
want to do. I'm leaving it open to them.
Excellent.
Not directly website, but on the gear stuff. Literally this afternoon, right before I headed to the library, I got the notice from our screen printer that the t-shirts are in. So those of you that ordered long sleeve t-shirts or had t-shirts ordered at the end of the year there, next meeting we'll have them here.
Excellent. Well, I want to jump back up into the current topics and committee reports. Brad, we'll start with you with the Elmer and new member committee updates. Any updates in the last couple weeks?
No new updates aside from the breaking news that Jay is going to join me as the co-chair, so thank you for that, Jay. Following the example that Paul and others have had for the last year or so, they were in a pattern of doing a presentation one month and the following month just an open session for Q&A. And that seemed to work really well, so I think we're going to probably continue that. I think our January session is the 19th. Do I remember that right?
Yep.
The 19th, and I think here
Yes.
at the Parker Library as well. And I don't know if there was already a presentation lined up for January.
I believe January was Q&A.
Okay, perfect. So our first session, January 19th, here at the library, will just be open Q&A. So if you need help programming the radio, you're looking at an antenna, you're trying to figure out what radio to buy next, bring your questions, and we'll get as many people to provide some input as possible. So we're here to help. New members, old members, returning members, anything that we can do to help you, we'll hook you up with the right resource that can give you some assistance.
Good. Thanks for the update. Next we'll have John and 4SJW and the repeater committee.
Thank you, sir. Just want to thank Paul, first off, AC5S. Think of where we were 2 years ago and think of where we are now. And Paul did that effort. So I want to thank Paul for all that. How many of you here are on the repeater committee? Okay, I want to thank everyone here, especially for Don. Don got us up at SQUA, but we also got a great digital site right up the road here. And Homestead Hills, that's actually the formal name. Hollywood Hills, though. I think I caused that. And the Water Tower site. Dirk has added 2 new sites for us. And of course, Jeff's effort with the All-Star build and those Doug K0UC and Bill W0SUN and others as far as really getting us into the digital world of things. So I just want to thank all of those guys. Everything's working pretty well. We went up to SQUA on Friday. My Honda Pilot just barely made it into the driveway. I was right in front of Doug, so he could have pushed me out if I needed to. But Don put his MTR 2000 back on the air, so the W0CFI UHF is healthy now. We put the 6-meter base station on the air. How many of you have 6-meter FM capability? 51.700. We'll update the website here soon. And a 107.2 tone, that's tied into the All-Star system. It's working real well. So we got 2 new additions to the family this past week. And I think that was it. We still have some issues with backup power. SQUA has lost power, I think, two times in this last 6 weeks. So we're starting to think about it. And our next tentative repeater committee is the 27th. I know you wanted the budget by the 27th. Could we have a little bit of extra time?
Granted.
But we'll
Yeah, till the 28th.
an all-nighter, night. So again, lots of interesting things coming up, and appreciate everyone's support. Thank you.
And the 6-meter info is on the website. I did that
You did
yesterday
that?
morning,
Okay,
so
thank
if you didn't jot those things down, they're up there.
Great, thanks for the update, John. Any questions for John or the repeater committee? Okay, hearing none. Our special events committee, that chair position is open. The special events committee handle things like pedaling for Parkinson's, as well as the special event we did here just a few short weeks ago, Wings Over the Rockies. That was a great special event that was done as well. So we're looking for a chairperson to head up that cause. We assure you that any of the chair positions are not John Wayne positions. You won't be riding solo. You'll have full support of the board as well as the opportunity for other members to get plugged in within your committee. So if you have a ability to lead a small group and recruit people, we really need your help as well with the Special Events Committee. Paul, AC5S, the Portable Ops Group, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, just a couple things, Dan. Portable Ops Group, also known as the Parker Militia. And there is one member who, on his survey, when he went for jury duty, did list Parker Militia, and he did not get selected. So whatever the case is, we are Portable Ops Group. We go out once a month, every month, year-round, to set up portable equipment, portable HF equipment, sometimes VHF equipment, UHF equipment, but primarily HF. We have a lot of different people that show up with different transceivers, different antenna configurations. There are months I don't bring a radio. I just am interested in seeing what everybody else does. And I was very interested in Scott's setup. He was a little more of a living room type, laid back operating station. He had his table and his reclining chair and everything up in the wood. Anyway, we do that every month. We have a different deployment every month. And if you're not on the mailing list, it's ac5s@icloud.com. And I'll get you on the list and we'll send you an email out when we're going each month. This month, January, the deployment is actually Winter Field Day. And it's going to be at the N0KKY facility, compound, campus, south of Franktown. If you've never been there, it's amazing. It's an old 1800s farm with the original buildings, the original barn, the spring house. And I mentioned the spring house for a particular reason. I'll explain in just a second. So we're going to operate Winter Field Day there, and this is the first year we're going to set up a K0 PRA station and actually keep track of our contacts, submit the logs, and see where we kind of fall with the other clubs around the U.S. So anyway, that's the 29th of January. We're going to be there from about 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. approximately. If you want to get there early to help set up, please show up about 7:30. We're actually going to be using the old spring house built in the 1800s as our operating position for our sideband station. Very cool. So we'll put up some wire antennas up above the spring house. We'll get in there. That's where we'll operate. Now Dana is also going to be operating a CW station using some automated equipment. So if you want to learn about CW, that station will be on the air as well. If you want to get on the air with the CW station, you can do that as well. Now, if you don't want to operate the K0 PRA equipment, you want to bring your own equipment, you're welcome to do that too. We have about 40 acres. Stan will let us go anywhere on the property. We want to drive out there and set up an antenna. We probably had 20 different HF stations last year. And also Stan guarantees weather in the 50s to 60s every year. And this is the third year we've done it, and he has hit it exactly right on every time. And so that's our deployment. Please come out the 29th. There will be some grills set up. Now we're not doing potluck or chili cook-off or chili or whatever we did in November. That was kind of our November get-together. But the grills will be there. You can bring out whatever you want to throw on the grill. Bring your own sides, whatever. If you want to eat, bring everything yourself that you're going to have for your meal. But we will have grills there. There'll be a porta potty there. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Bring your own equipment. Use the PRA equipment. Either way, that's the Parker Militia deployment for January. We also will have deployments each month throughout 2022, focusing this year on Summits on the Air. So we're going to have several SOTA activations and deployments throughout 2022. It's going to be fantastic. We've already got some of that in the works. And we'll be doing our annual Signal Butte trip in September, which how many have been on the Signal Butte trip? Wow. You don't want to miss it, really. You really don't. It's fantastic. Scott, what did I miss?
2 items for the winter field day. If you are going to operate your own station, 2 things. You can create a log for yourself, but you can submit it under the PRA for points. And 2 is please operate QRP, 10 watts or less, because the main station is going to be on the air, and hopefully we can kind of minimize interference with everybody doing that.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Yeah, 10 watts maximum, and then also if you can separate yourself a little bit from the main station, that would be helpful as well. And then I'll make one announcement for Dana that he asked me to
Yes.
make. Dana is the new
Field
day chair. This year, for the first time, we have a dedicated, reserved camping site for field day. We don't have to go into Colorado Campground anymore and deal with people around us and trying to figure stuff out and where everybody's going to be camping. We have our own campsite. It's a group campsite. It's been reserved for the PRA name from Wednesday until noon on Sunday. So you can come up early. It's paid for. We can handle up to 100 people. And I think however many vehicles, but we're pretty good. We do have some limitations with regard to the length of the campers and things like that we can bring in there. All that information will be presented via our blast and in a presentation that Dana's going to do as well. But make sure you look up the main ARRL Summer Field Day. It's on the ARRL site. All the dates, all the information's there, and then we'll start having information as well on our regular meetings and via the blast as we get closer. But I think it's the third weekend in June, is that right?
I believe so. Last full weekend of June.
Pork shoulder,
Oh,
it's fantastic. We had right around 80 people last year, and some people camped. We had about 50 campers, and we had 30 people, I think, or 30 or 40 people just came up for the dinner on Saturday.
food so good, your lips fight each other.
Really good. Okay, that's all I had. Any questions for the portable deployment group? Okay.
Paul, thanks for the
You
update.
bet. Thanks, Dan.
Throw it over to Randy. Randy, future meeting on covert antennas.
Yeah. So this is a project I kind of started a year or so ago and asked for everybody, actually it'd be great if all the club members sent me photographs of what they're doing for their antennas. They're in the attic, send me pictures of what they look like in the attics. And if they're outside and you're hiding them in trees, then send me pictures. I just want to get an idea of what everybody's doing so that we can kind of present that as as a how-to for all the members, because you know how HOAs are. I luckily don't have an HOA, so I have a tower. But I'm lucky, and there's a few other people that are lucky too around. But that's what this idea is. So if you have pictures or can take some pictures, cell phone pictures are fine. I've got some from last year and a half, and what I want to do is just put them together and do a presentation. So send them to me at I'm on the website. I'm also K0TNG at parkerradio.org, and I'd appreciate it. We can throw something together for later on this year.
Very good.
And hopefully it'll be helpful for everybody.
Excellent. Thanks, Randy. Good
And
update.
we still need that special events volunteer for the coordinator.
Somebody in this room might get the draw tonight.
Yeah,
Tonight.
That's right.
Maybe
yeah,
Thanks, Randy.
sure.
Jeff, anything you'd like to add for the website committee?
Not unless anybody's got any questions.
Any questions?
Stay tuned.
Robert, I think you had something on the gear or a suggestion on gear,
Yeah,
maybe, possibly.
Well, that was something I'm putting out for Jeff. Yeah,
Okay.
He would investigate some things, but it's a company called Hemp Threads
Mhm.
out of Texas. They've got a pretty good selection of shirts and stuff already there. They would charge us a fee for the patterning, to digitize the logo front and back kind of thing, but then we would just order straight from them. And then, they would handle all the inventory and stuff like that. We can still use our local people, you know, for any special t-shirts we want, like Field Day or Healing for Parkinson's or
Mhm.
whatever. So that was just something else I was throwing out
Okay.
there to take a look at.
Probably for future discussions at our next meeting.
Yeah.
Yep. Very good. Thanks, Robert. Club remote station. Scott, do you want to take it from here?
Yeah. The board at our meeting came up with another concept that we are entertaining and trying to gauge some interest in, and that is a remote HF station for club member use. So some of the game rules that we kind of kicked around are, number one, we would like it to be local to Parker, somewhere in the surrounding area, and it needs to have kind of 3 items. It needs to have hopefully a low noise floor. 2 is accessibility, that we can get to it any time of the year, which is why we want it in the Parker area. And 3, it needs to have a reasonable internet connection. So we're scoping out some locations. If anybody has contacts with somebody who may have large acreage that would allow us a small corner area or some spot on that acreage, we'll go out, we can do a site survey, we'll figure out if it's going to work or not. Some of the concepts that we're after here, I am not a remote station expert by any means. I do work with Ellercraft, as most of you know. I travel with them and I do their trade shows. I was on the phone with Ellercraft today talking to them about the new K4 that's out, at least in limited numbers. But the development on the K4 is it too can be used as a remote, so I was asking them some remote questions that are generic, and I'll go over those in a second. But we also kicked around the idea of a flex radio, and there are some others that we will consider. But the bottom line that we want in equipment is the members need to have access to freeware that they can load on their computer to access the hardware. So that's number one, is it'll be freeware for whatever product we choose. Number 2, it'll be HF. We'll pick some bands. I'll get a feel for that here in just a second from you guys. Number 3, it'll be phone only, voice. There's too many twists and turns and requirements for data exchange with the internet reliability and stuff to do data modes, and that does include CW as well as things like FT8, RIDI, JT65, any of the other digital modes. So it'll be a phone setup only, at least initially, until we get over some hurdles, but that's the way it'll be set up. So just a quick show of hands, who would be interested, specifically those people maybe that have HOA restrictions? This gives you access to a full HF station. Again, it's paid for by the members, it's for the members, so it's free to use, unlike those paid services that would be out there. So just a quick show of hands, who would be interested in something like that? Man, there's some
Not everyone at once. Relax.
Okay. 2 is for, and this works for maybe our new members that are techs. You can log in and have access at least to listen in without having transmit privileges. So this applies to everybody in the club. It applies to spouses that may want to, listen in and see what it's all about. They would have access to it as well. Currently, in the HF bands that we would be looking at, with my history with HF and some of the other guys, 20 meters is pretty much a standard go-to frequency. We would have 20 meters. So besides 20 meters, 40 meters, some interest in 40, interest in like 15 or 17, some higher bands. Okay, and that's all very doable.
I'd go the other way too.
Go lower, yeah.
I would love 80. I'm on such a small lot.
Okay.
There is no way that I could ever set up an 80 meter in town.
That's a good point.
And so we were kicking around some ideas, those of us kind of, driving the ship here with this idea, is if we were to find, let's say that there's some large acreage out there, maybe there's trees, or maybe we could add some phone poles, we could put up a dipole, and we could put up multiple dipoles or vertical antennas. So the bands are kind of open for us to look at. We've looked at
No
some-
pun intended.
I'm sorry, what?
No pun intended.
No pun intended. Some of the other things that we've looked at with the hardware side of it is it could be solar only if it's remote enough that there's no power, but we can still beam in and get internet. So that's a possibility. The control would be through a product called remote radio. The fellow I was talking to at Elecraft today did explain that many of the Elecraft employees are authors of remote radio software. And with that, you don't have to have an Elecraft product, but they were explaining it to me is that's kind of the gateway, if you will, that allows the access and it would control being able to limit technicians to their area, generals, extras to their area, or advanced if you have that privilege as well. And it would carve out time frames so that we can allocate time to each individual and allow the access to it. So a lot of stuff is kind of coming together. That's a 30,000 foot overview, as you might say, to look at it. Glad there's some interest. We'll move forward with putting some more project together and kind of go from there.
Yeah, that was one of the board topics that we threw out as a term called a BHAG, which was a big, hairy, audacious goal for this year. So that's one we're going to keep an eye on. So Scott, thank you for that update as well. If you have any questions on that, or if you are interested in getting in at the ground level of such a project, please let Scott know. Again, not a John Wayne position. We'll be happy to guide you in all throughout the process and give you the support that you need. Randy, you had a question?
Yeah, I was just thinking about field day. Is it possible to run that station as one of our stations on field day, even though it's not physically with us?
I don't believe so, no. Because it's outside of a certain perimeter that we have to operate.
1,000 foot, yeah.
I think there was an exception this last year due to COVID, where others were able to remote, if you will. And
They were able to operate from home under their own call sign, but list the club as their club designation.
Right.
We would be able, potentially, however, to use it for special events.
Sure,
So
absolutely.
we went into a special event where we did not have access to put up an antenna, or from a visual standpoint, it might be a better presentation for a Flex or Elecraft or whatever.
Correct.
That would give us some options there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, if you're interested in helping at the ground level on that, please reach out to Scott. ARRL update. I went on a really good update last month, so I'm going to keep this short. The ARRL board is due to meet next week in Newington, so adios. I'm heading to Connecticut next week, so look forward to that trip out there, and rest assured that you will get a full report from me once I return next month for that. So a lot of good things happening and some good initiatives that are being put together by several of the committees. You'll probably see those come out in the ARRL Blast, as well as any updates coming out from the league. So more to follow there. Stay tuned. HF loaners, I'm happy to report that 2 of the 3 of our HF loaners are out and being used, which is fantastic because they don't collect dust in my basement. So if you are interested in trialing the Icon 705, I still have that. No, excuse me, I don't have that. That one's out. The Yaesu 991A is available. So if you are interested in giving that a go, please let me know. Again, as club members, those are assets that belong to you. Put them to use. They do better being used than collecting dust. So maybe you're in the market for a 991A, or maybe some other ones, and 991A is on your list. You want to give it a try, please reach out to me on that. Robert covered the King Supers and the Amazon Smile, so please, if you haven't selected a charity of choice, please select the PRA as your charity of choice. It'll go a long way. The balance of the 2022 meetings are all going to be here at the Douglas County Library, including the Elmer Nights. So they're in one of these 2 rooms, either Exhibit Hall A or B, and all of those dates are on our website listed. Probably the second most favorite part of my meeting is the soapbox. So what I want to know is, anybody newly licensed in the last few months? No newly licensed. Okay, any upgrades in the last 90 days? Darn it, no upgrades. All right. How about a new DX contact? Scott?
Bosnia-Herzegovina,
Great one. What mode?
FT8.
band?
17.
Nice. Very nice. Congrats on that. Anyone else? That's a good one. That's a real good one. Now, Doug, yeah, Doug's got a list. So Doug, if you're listening on tonight, which I'm sure you are, get into the chat. Let us know who you've worked, please. Last but not least, and I know there's several of you, anybody get a new radio recently and want to brag about it? Scott.
I have the ICOM ID52.
Ooh.
Anybody wants to look at it?
Ooh.
Handle.
Very good. Woody.
Any discussion on the CW month?
CW month, anybody have anything on that?
It's coming, and we don't have the dates yet, but we're dedicating an entire month to CW. And it'll be, our portable deployment will be CW, our presentation, our face-to-face meeting, business meeting will be about CW. We'll have a learning academy that we're going to do separately to the two meetings, and our Elmer night is going to be dedicated to CW. So it's going to be the entire month, and we're working on those dates, Woody, and should have those
Within the next couple weeks.
right?
Is there going to be an active frequency? Like 80 meters or 40
Are you
meters?
volunteering?
All speeds?
Are you volunteering?
No.
Sounds like he's volunteering.
I thought he was volunteering.
Yeah.
All in favor for Woody, say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. Congratulations, Woody. No,
We
they'll
can set up several weeks, on the air.
Yeah, so yeah, we'll have a full month dedicated to that, and I'm sure that as that starts to come together, there'll be select frequencies by bands and times and evenings each week. Good question. John?
How many of you have more than one HT? That's stupid. You know that little SMA thing?
No.
I'm always moving antennas around, stuff like that. I'm definitely afraid of taking that little SMA and breaking it. I'm gonna have to send it back to ICOM. So I've gone ahead, and today I went down to the candy. Everyone know what this candy store is? And got my last piece of the puzzle. I went totally BNC.
Ooh.
Think about that for a second. That's how long it takes me. And if I bust this thing, I go down for $6.95 to get the SMA to BNC connector. Of course, the Anytone's different than my ICOM stuff. So now I'm totally one size fits all, connected in, and there you go. Because I got a big antenna, I got a little stubby antenna, all this kind of stuff. So think about that. If you're starting to collect lots of HTs, like a lot of us, and you got all these different antennas, this might be something. So I'll keep you guys up to date, see how it works out, but it's so far so good. So that's my 2 cents. I did.
Yeah.
I did. Woody.
Woody sold them.
You're charging me
How much
one
are
of your bonus, buddy.
Thanks, John. Any other questions or comments before we conclude the business meeting? Okay, hearing none, you've bought it. Congratulations. We're good for another month. Again, that's my second favorite part of the meeting is the soapbox. That's good stuff there to see what everybody's up to. But selfishly, my favorite part of the meeting is the monthly presentation. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome up Brad, AB4BA, and his presentation on the Paracet radio. So Brad, the floor is yours. I'll hook you up with all this good stuff too. November or December QSP?
Who doesn't get QST?
Yeah, I was going to hunt you down. We'll find you. December? How about November? November QST.
Is that good, Brad?
Yeah, that's good.
All right.
How about that?
Thanks. Thank you.
should have two monitors.
There we go. I'm seeing what I need to see. Are you seeing what I, there we go. Okay. That'll work. I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. I know there's a big game on, but rumor has it it's just a rerun. So I'm going to talk about the Paracet radio. Its official name is the Wadden Mark 7, but it's also known as the Paracet, either with an S or a C, depending upon your country of origin, and the SOE, the Special Operations Executive. The Paracet radio, basically it's a lightweight clandestine CW radio, dual band, 40 and 80. It was developed in 1941 at the Royal Signal Section 7 at Wadden Hall in the UK. It was later built at Little Horwood near Bletchley Park. It was used throughout World War II by MI6 and the Special Operations Executive. It was dropped all over Europe to resistance fighters. About 1,000 units were made. They were all made handmade. And only about 19 of the original Paracets exist. And the reason for that is because Churchill reportedly ordered them destroyed to keep them from the Russians, as well as to keep the activities of the SOE secret. This is a picture of the set. I got this from the Crypto Museum, and there's several slides. That's an excellent website if anybody's interested. Note the calibration chart. It's a little hard to see right up in through here, but it basically, all these radios had a calibration chart. So if you set the dial to around 10, you'd be putting out around 7.1 megahertz. These are the valves or tubes that are stored in the lid. They're US made, and more about those in a minute. A little bit more close-up of it. You can see the valve sites, as well as right here is for the crystal. You have to put in the individual crystals. The lights for the actual tuning of the unit. Here's the CW key down in the corner. Okay, all these units had an internal CW key. And then the other various dials for tuning. Here's your band switch right over there for 80 and 40 CW. What were the requirements of this radio? It had to have enough power to travel 300 to 500 miles to get from the occupied Europe back to the UK stations. It had to be able to receive AM broadcast, because the BBC would send stuff, you'd get your AM broadcast, and then you'd send back as CW. It had to be portable, it had to be easily repaired, it had to be easily operable in the field. That's why it opened up and sat down. It's a lot easier to work on a radio looking down than it is looking up. It's not as operable in the field if you're having to look straight on at the radio. Had to be easily disguised, obviously very important. It had to be durable. And it also had various sources of power, AC mains being the usual one, although battery or bicycle generator, and there's even reports of one steam-powered radio. The receiver was a regenerative detector for both CW and AM. Again, this is the receiver side. Frequency, again, 40 and 80. And the output was only to high impedance headphones. It didn't have a speaker, nor would you want one. The transmitter was a crystal oscillator, and it was CW only. You only transmitted on CW. There's no voice on this radio. Again, similar frequencies, QRP outputs. They had the 6x6 valves. They were American made, and it had an internal integrated Morse key. Schematic of it. You can see the large blue caps there. Take note right over here. I think that's it. 360 volts. These things were a little bit finicky, and I'll talk more about. Part of the training was to learn how to operate and repair these. This is the power supply. Again, the mains, 360 volts, going in and through the mains. The disadvantage of this radio was it had no volume control. The only way you could control things as far as how loud it was to readjust the headsets. It had no meters on it. You just used a couple of light bulbs, whether brighter or dimmer, in order to tell if you were tuned correctly. It was QRP. It only put out 4 to 5 watts, so it depended heavily on the big UK stations to find and respond to those signals. You have to manually switch between transmission and receive. And the unit that I built, that's a kit, it's a modern day Paracet radio, actually has that same switch. You got to flip back and forth to go between receive and transmit. There's no real spotting capability. Your transmitting frequency depended upon the crystal that you put in. You were always working split with these radios. There is no side tone. So you're clicking the key and you're not hearing what you're sending. So you're doing it entirely by your hand. They were high voltage, and the other thing that was really important was they leaked RF like crazy, which is a problem when you have somebody who's trying to find you by your leaking RF signal. So what they did initially, they put these in suitcases. Later, they put them into metal cases called cache boxes to try to decrease the RF that was getting out. This is probably a replica that somebody has made. I'm told there's up to 3,000 replicas that people have built over the years with various parts. But you can see the headphones sitting right over here. This is your power supply, all within this leather suitcase. The valves up here. I think these are your light bulbs. It looks like right there. There's your internal key, your switch for your bands. And the all-important calibration chart, because when you turn this thing on, you need to be spot on or very close to where your signal is, because the longer that you're dialing around and leaking signal, the quicker the Germans could find them. There were no instructions on how to work this that survived until in March of 2021, last year, from the estate of Dirk Rustema, Papa Alpha 0 Delta Romeo. He was a clandestine operator from the Netherlands. They found this set of instructions, and it's sort of fun to read through that. The first part up here talks about power. I love this. The consequence of connecting DC to AC set would be a burnout of the mains transformer. And then down here it talks about the importance of getting it all set up before you turn it on, because you're wasting time. You could waste several minutes trying to turn it on and tune and everything else like that. So you really wanted to have it set up and ready to go as soon as you applied power. Again, they didn't have switches. So as soon as you turn the power on, you were transmitting whether you wanted to or not. The Special Operations Executive, these are the people, or some of the people that used this radio. It's created by Churchill. It remained classified until the 1990s, and some of its activities are still classified today. It was known as Churchill's secret weapon, and the people that worked there were the Ministry of Ungentlemanly War, or the Baker Street Irregulars. There were 13,000 people who worked. Many women worked at its height. And they worked with the resistance fighters across Europe. The Special Operations Executive was disbanded in 1946. So its activities were during the war and very shortly after, and then it sort of disappeared and became very hidden. The founding charter was to coordinate all action by way of subversion and sabotage against the enemy overseas. The training manual called for irregular warfare, to undermine the enemy morale, to damage enemy materiel, infiltrate weapons, explosives, sabotage equipment, and damage enemy manpower and communications. The SOE was responsible for assassinations, such as the assassination of Reinhard Heydrich, the architect of Hitler's final solution. The SOE also destroyed a Michelin plant, which was a heavy water plant in Norway. They made multiple contributions to D-Day with Operation Jedburgh. And finally, they were also active in the Pacific Theater. And if you read this part here, the destroying a bridge in Burma, if that sounds familiar, that's the bridge over the River Kwai. They believed that the SOE shortened the war by 3 to 6 months. The primary source of recruits were refugees fleeing from occupied Europe. The SOE accepted people from all levels of society and a fairly broad range of ages, versus the SIS, which was later became MI6, which was very class conscious in Britain. Thus, the SOE was the Baker Street Irregulars. The SIS was known as the Bastards of Broadway. There was a significant rivalry between the SIS and the SOE. The SIS played by the rules, the SOE did not. SOE training. Obviously, you had to speak the language of the area of insertion fluently, and there were some places in Norway where each island had a different dialect, and everybody knew everybody, so it's hard to get an agent into those areas. The training of SOE was 3 parts. There was commando training, there was specialist training in demolition and radio ops, and then there was a thing called finishing school. That's where you learn to operate covertly and what to do if you were captured by the Gestapo. The minimum Morse was 12 words per minute. You had to be able to send and receive at 12 words per minute. Inyat Khan, and more about her later. This is her finishing report, which is interesting. It sort of tells you the difference between the SIS type of prim and proper versus what the SOE would do. And if you read some of these, it said she was not overburdened with brains, but the commander said nonsense, had unstable and temperamental personality and not really suited for the work. And he wrote down here in hand, he says, makes me cross. She ended up being one of the best agents that the SOE ever had. This is a Norwegian. This is from his wireless training course. You had to understand how the radio worked. You had to be able to fix it when it broke. And so here he is. These are his handwritten notes in some language that I'm not sure which one it is. The SOE teams were typically deployed in 3s. You had a leader, you had a courier, and you had the radio operator, which was also known as the pianist. They were typically deployed by aircraft. This is a Westland Lysander. It's a short takeoff and landing aircraft. It would well, I'll talk about that in a minute, but it would come in on a covert airstrip and drop off its payload. They also used the Lockheed Hudson, which was 2-engine aircraft for a similar landing and deployment. And the Halifax, which was a 4-engine aircraft, was used more for parachute deployment. So these weren't necessarily parachuted into foreign areas. They would land in covertly and load and unload. The deployment missions were typically flown by moonlight, minimal moonlight, a week before and after the new moon. It was map navigation and landmark navigation. Typically, there would be a 3-person reception committee, and the committee would form an L at the landing site, and they would have torches or flashlights. And you would have one at the bottom, one at the shoulder, and one at the top. And they would form the landing strip, okay? And they would flash a Morse code, a prearranged Morse code signal to the pilot, who would flash his lights back. They would land. they could deploy, get the people out of the plane, and get back and take off within 3 minutes. So it's a pretty rapid deployment because, again, the Germans are looking for them too. The failure rate was fairly high, most often due to navigational errors, not finding the right place. It got better towards the end of the war, but you can still see it's 33%, so fairly high failure rate of these deployments. The radio obviously was the primary form of communication between the SOE and field agents. They tried the mail; it didn't work so well. But it's the wireless and the Paracet radio. They depended heavily on the big, powerful transmitters in the UK. 250 watts to 15 kilowatts, and the very large antennas in the UK. So it was essentially a QRP to QRO operation, and it was cross mode. Again, AM to CW. They would send hidden messages over the BBC, and that particular message, Jasmine is playing the flute, was an actual message that was sent to Noor Inayat Khan, a 19-year-old female. It was telling her that additional agents will be arriving, and she responded back with encrypted CW. This is the first aid nursing Mansi, known as Fannies. They were the women that would operate the radios and get the communications. Here they're using Marconi CR100 wireless transceivers. They were also responsible for decoding the message and the indecipherables that would inevitably occur from a field agent under whatever pressure. They played a vital role in the entire operation. Much of the radio operator's time was spent encoding and decoding messages. Initially, the codes were based on lines of poetry. So an agent would have a few memorized poems. He would go in. Unfortunately, those are things that can be tortured out of them. Later, they switched over because of Leo Marx, more about him in a minute, to one-time pads that were printed on silk. So what you would do is you use your one-time pad, you'd cut that off, and you'd burn it. They used silk because it could be hidden on your body, and during a pat down, they aren't going to feel it like they would a piece of paper. The silk was largely provided by the United States, and it also had some special characteristics which allowed you to print on it. And silk during the war was very difficult to find because it was being used for parachutes. This is an example of an encoded message from a Norwegian coastal watcher, Cygnus. This was done in October of 43, and you can see that he is talking about the cargo ships and U-boats, etc. Valuable information, and was instrumental in sinking several of these ships.
It was actually December. I think
Was it?
Day, month, year. This is the 13th.
Oh, you know what? You're right. They do that. They do. It was December 1043. You're right, because that's right. You're absolutely correct. Being an SOE agent was dangerous. Of the 480 agents deployed to France, 25% were lost. 40 women agents were killed. The average life expectancy was 6 months, and at times it was as low as 6 weeks. The Germans had extensive direction-finding networks. They had fixed stations. They had DF vans that they would drive around as soon as they picked up a signal. And they even had agents. There's some photographs of agents that have antennas. They have these big, heavy coats with antennas in the sleeves. And so they would use that to direction find. Typically, the Germans would isolate a building where the signal was coming from, and then they would start turning off the mains floor by floor. And as soon as the signal stopped, they knew that that was the floor that they were on, so they'd start breaking down doors. It took as little as 15 minutes for them to triangulate a signal. So back to the radio, if you have a radio, as soon as you turn it on and it's leaking RF, the clock's running. So you need to get your message out and turn that thing off as quick as possible. The SOE radio operators had their fists recorded so that you sort of knew, well, that's that guy, because I can tell by the beat of the letters that I'm getting. They also were trained in various security checks, putting deliberate errors at a certain point in the message. Sometimes the agents were captured, tortured. Their radios were then used by the Germans. And if you know CW, there was a UK operator. He suspected the radio had been captured. So he ended his message with this. And for those that don't know CW, 4 dots is an H. HH, Heil Hitler. And he got the response back of HH, and he knew it was a captured radio at that point. There was another story that I was going to tell. There was a team that was on a train, and as they pulled into the station, the Gestapo was searching everybody, and they were searching luggage, and they had the radio in their luggage, and they knew they were going to be captured. So the radio operator took the suitcase, raised it above his head, and in his loudest and best German, he said, "I've captured a wireless set. I need to be taken to headquarters immediately." The Gestapo called him a car. They got into a car. They drove off. They killed the driver and were able to escape. There were a lot of heroes in the SOE. Leo Marx, he was the head of the SOE encryption. He was the one who convinced everybody that the poems weren't working. The Germans had figured out the poems and switched them over to one-time codes. Noor Inayat Khan, again, French Indian, 19-year-old female. She worked solo, sent hundreds of messages from Paris in 1943. She was betrayed by a double agent. She was captured while hanging an antenna wire. She was later taken and executed at Dachau concentration camp. And her last words to her Nazi captors was liberty. Olaf Reed Olsen. I just saw, there's a 1956 movie, Contact, and if you speak German, Norwegian, and English, you can actually watch it. It was actually pretty interesting about him. He was a resistance fighter, reported on German ship and troop movements, helping to sink several. He narrowly escaped the Nazis as they pursued him. He survived and lived into his 80s. His particular Paracet is still around. His radio is around and is on display at the Imperial War Museum in London. Virginia Hall was a successful SOE agent who arranged safe houses for down flyers for airmen in the Paris area. And Jeffrey Pigeon was the youngest member of the Wadden team to develop the Paracet radio. He died in August of 21. Oops, sorry. A little busy, but these are some of the books and readings and such on it. I've read a few of them, not all of them. There was one right down here. Here it is. The SOE Training Manual, how to be a spy. I got to read that one. I haven't read that one yet. 2 Eggs on My Plate. This is very good. Silk and Cyanide, Leo Marx book. Also very, very good. If you get a chance, go on YouTube and look up Leo Marx interview. There's an interview by the BBC and C-SPAN where he talks about a lot of this stuff. It's about an hour. Fascinating interview. You can build your own Paracet, and you can make an original replica. There's actually a book out by Hiroki Kato that tells you how to build it, and you can get the parts from this Paracet website in the Netherlands. You can get most of the original parts from it, and people have actually built their own radios. I'm not that good. I'm not anywhere near that good. I've only been a ham for a little over 3 years, so I'm learning all this stuff as I go along too. But what I did is I built the 4 States QRP Bayou Jumper, which I have in the room. And it's a modern day Paracet kit, but it has a lot of the characteristics. It's got the regenerative receiver. You have to tune in, you have to flip between receive and send. So I've got a little demo over here where you can see how difficult it is to really operate one of these. It's not easy, it's not easy. The QRP guys also had a kit that it's been retired, but the schematics are available. And I would like to thank Jim, November 5, India Bravo. He helped me when I let smoke out of this particular kit to get it back up and running. So, thank you very much. Any questions? I've got the little set over there.
Question.
Oh, yeah.
So you said there's, how many radios are existing?
There are 19 original sets, and one of the stories was there was, I don't know who he was, but he was told to go into the room and destroy all the radios. And he walked in there, and there were 100 Paracet radios in there, and he took 2 or 3 of the best ones that he kept that later survived, and they destroyed the other ones again because Churchill, the story is that Churchill did not want those radios out.
So are most of them in museums now?
Museums and
personal
private
collections?
hands, personal collections, yes, originals are. Other questions? Fair enough. We can play a little radio if anybody's interested.
I love it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, I think one of the things that is obvious, and Brad just really kicked off 2022 in a great way, and that kickoff is, you've probably heard me talk about giving back of our time, talent, and treasures back to the BRA. This is just a wonderful, I better get mic'd up here.
Yeah.
To make this official.
Right.
This is just a perfect way of demonstrating something that Brad is obviously passionate about. And if you didn't tell us that you've only been licensed for like 3 years, I would have called you a liar. This is pretty remarkable. And I think it's also indicative that I'm going 30 years licensed this year, believe that or not. Yeah, I was like in diapers when I got licensed. But I think this is one of the things that, even though somebody may have only been licensed or is licensed 3 years, you can absolutely learn something new within amateur radio every single day. This was just a home run type presentation. Absolutely knocked it out of the park as far as the history, the detail, and then we get to play radio a little bit, which is really cool. So Brad, thank you for giving of your time, talent, and treasures this evening. I know I learned something new. I was taking copious notes back there, and I know I got a bunch of things to look up tonight once I get home. So again, congratulations. Great job. So if you are interested in providing a presentation for the club, please let us know. Use the contact tab on our website, parkerradio.org. Let us know what you're interested in. We'll get you into the schedule, which will be of utmost importance. And if you don't feel like giving it at a monthly meeting, there's also an opportunity at our Elmer night as well. So please reach out to us with that also. If you're interested in staying and checking out Brad's setup here, please do so. If not, hopefully we'll see you for Elmer night in a couple weeks. And if not, we'll see you next month for the month of February. So thanks for coming out and have a great night. Thank you. Thank you.